you want a year 5? Okay, so I'm really impressed with some of the things that came through yesterday. Really imaginative ideas around your main characters and your settings. So I'm really looking forward to seeing today how you can introduce that character to the reader. Okay, that's our main job today. We're looking at introducing that main character, and you're going to start to build your story around them. Okay, make sure that the reader really understands your character by the end of this session today. Okay, so let's have a look into where we were yesterday. So main character and setting. Who can remember who my main character was? Who was in, what was my setting? Okay, so it was a young girl. Okay, she's fascinated with inventing new things. She wants to be an inventor. Okay, so that's my story. Tristan, okay, was curious, wasn't he? He wanted to take things apart, put them back together, find out how things work. Okay, my character, slightly different. Okay, wants to be an inventor, and she was always looking through car boot sales, antique shops for objects she could use in her inventions, and that's where she stumbles across the viewer. But we don't need to worry about that part of the story today. So let's flick back to the first page of the book. Okay, so let's have a read. And basically, you're going to create your own version of this first page today to introduce us to your character. We learned a lot about Tristan from this first page, okay, and the reader today is going to learn a lot about your character from your first page. So, Tristan was curious from birth. This is not to say that he was different from other babies. In fact, he was rather ordinary. But from the moment he opened his eyes, he seemed to be looking, taking the world in, as it were. Nor did this remarkable curiosity, this constant need to search, look out, lessen as he grew older. From the time he was 3 years old, Tristan would wander from his parents' house, to be found hours later miles away and always alone, staring up at the cloudless sky, or crouched by the seashore, peering at some long dead life form that had been washed up there, or once in a city park gathering the autumn leaves that lay scattered about him. Another time, on occasion when he vanished overnight, he was found in a museum gazing into a display case of long outdated cameras, oblivious of all else, even the heartache that he'd caused his parents. But as he grew older and entered his teenage years, it was the city dump that attracted Tristan most. That was where he felt closest to his private view of heaven. Okay, so first of all, before we move on, let's think about some of the punctuation and grammar that's used within that first section, and we're going to have to use some of that within our own as well. So let's have another look at the first page, okay, and I'd just like you to make a quick note in your book. Okay, what punctuation can you see in there? Okay, so one of the main things that stood out to me was the amount of parenthesis that was used, and I think actually the authors used a bit too much. They used too much of one type. I think he could have done something slightly different, and we're going to be slightly more clever with ours and make sure that we're using a range of punctuation for parenthesis. Who can remember what parenthesis means? Who can remember? Have a think. Okay, so parenthesis is when a word, a phrase, or a clause is added into a sentence. Okay, and that adds extra information. But if it's removed, the sentence still makes sense on its own. Okay, and we can use brackets, dashes, or commas to show where that's been inserted. So I've got some examples for you here. Okay, so we've got the first one where we've got brackets, the second one we've got commas, okay, and the third one we've got dashes. Let's have a look at the sentence. I miss seeing Amelia, my best friend from primary school, every day. Now if I remove those brackets, okay, remove the information, I miss seeing Amelia every day, that sentence still makes sense. Okay, what the brackets have done, what the parenthesis has done, is added some extra information about Amelia. So I miss seeing Amelia, my best friend from primary school, every day. And the commas and the dashes can be used in exactly the same way. Okay, in the first section, they've used lots of dashes. Okay, so Gary Cruz used lots of dashes here. So let's see if we can pull out some of those. Okay, so this bit in here, is parenthesis, this information, okay? Does the sentence make sense if we took it out? Nor did this remarkable curiosity lessen as he grew older. Yeah, it does make sense. So it can be used there. Okay. We've then got another piece, whoops, here. Okay. More again here. Okay. So, and we've also used a dash at the end of the sentence there. So we've added some extra information onto the end. Okay. We've not used a pair of dashes there because we've just finished it with a full stop. Okay. Now, there's also one that uses commas. For once, in a city park, gathering the autumn leaves that lay scattered about him. Okay? Or once, gathering the autumn leaves that lay scattered about him. We've added some extra information, haven't we, to help the reader. So you're going to use parentheses today to try and add some extra information. You can use brackets. I could replace these dashes here with a set of brackets. Okay? That would make perfect sense as well. So you're going to be using either dashes, brackets or parenthesis. I'd like you to try and use more than one within your writing today. Okay, and I will post a link, okay, the link underneath for this YouTube video, which will just support you a bit more if you'd like an extra description of what parenthesis is and how you're going to use it. So let's have a look at how you're going to build it up then. You're going to use your plan, okay, and we're going to use the model of the first page, okay. So you're going to be creating a very similar piece of writing, but changing it to your character. So remember, my character was the young girl, and this is my piece of writing, okay, that I have created. So Isabel knew what she wanted to be when she grew up. This was not unusual. In fact, it was very ordinary. But unlike most other children, she did not want to be an astronaut or a vet. She wanted to be an inventor. Okay, so within that first section, I've got some very short, snappy sentences, okay, which models, doesn't it, from here. So Tristan was curious from birth. This is not to say he was different from other babies. In fact, he was rather ordinary. So they've used some nice short sentences, okay, and I've replicated that. I've used that within mine. And I've also used a dash, okay, to add some extra information on here. Ever since her trip to the Science Museum, her only visit to London with her granddad, she knew that she wanted to be the first person to develop a device to transport people back in time. As she grew older, she became more and more determined to succeed. So I've used some brackets to add extra information. Let's just double check it makes sense without it. So ever since her trip to the Science Museum with her granddad, she knew that she wanted to be the first person to develop a device to transport people back in time. So it does make sense without it, okay, but I've added some extra information in there. Her constant need to invent things had got her in a few sticky situations. Okay, so this is the part where in here it goes on to tell us, okay, a few stories about Tristan when he was younger. And this is your opportunity, okay, so you can use this model this morning, edit it, make it relevant to your character, okay. So you need to be telling me through this section, okay, the name of your character, okay, what, so yesterday Bartush was saying about working in the museum, okay, how did that happen to her? How did they become, what did they want to be that's important for the story? Okay, so it's important for the story that I tell you about her being an inventor, because if you don't know that, then we're not going to realise why she's found the viewer. So you need to introduce your character and what's special about them. And then I want you to just add a couple of stories about what happened when they were younger. So I might add some slightly funny stories here, okay? Invent things have got her in a few sticky situations. So I want you to add some things that have happened to your character, okay, as she was trying to invent. So maybe I could talk about a time when she had been trying to invent a time machine and had almost blown up her garage by trying to take apart a World War II bomb. Some story that will just tell us a bit more information about your character. So you're going to write, okay, an introduction paragraph, okay, and then maybe a couple of short stories about your character. This won't be a huge amount of writing, okay, but it will be probably half a page of A4, okay, to really introduce that character. So 2 or 3 paragraphs to introduce your character to me this morning. Okay, I look forward to reading them. I'm really interested to find out about a bit more about your characters. You can use my example, okay, to create your own, and I will see you in the live lesson at 10:40 later.